You have probably seen 1,000 to the moon forecast, but here's the brutal truth. 99% of Bitcoin predictions are straight garbage. Right now, you are looking at the real Bitcoin cycle curve. Do you see that dip near 75,000? That is where the smart money bought more. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will know exactly where Bitcoin is going in 2025 and why nobody else dares to say it out loud. Most so-called experts rely on three things: hype, buzzwords, or agenda-driven clickbait. I don't guess, I calculate. I look at the facts. I've spent years dissecting inflation, institutional flows, and price action. But here is my promise to you. You will get the real drivers behind Bitcoin's next bull run, a crystal clear forecast for 2025, and a step-by-step plan on how to position yourself. If you're still with me, do one thing right now. Smash that like and subscribe button so YouTube knows this video matters. Why do I invest my money in Bitcoin? Because fiat currencies are doomed. Every time the Fed prints another $1 trillion to bail out its failures, your savings shrink. They commit paper at will. Worthless paper with no cap, but Bitcoin? Only 21 million will cease to exist. Do you remember when Bitcoin was at 10K or 20K and everybody laughed and called it a bubble or a scam? Now fast forward to today, it is 5 times higher and my conviction is still rock solid. The more that they debase the dollar, the more Bitcoin skyrockets. It is simple supply and demand. More dollars chasing a fixed coin supply means one thing: Bitcoin will go up. Governments run 1.5 trillion deficits every year. They sell bonds, borrow money, and then they print more to pay interest. That is inflation. That is where your wallet gets lighter. Bitcoin is my digital gold. It is my hedge against a dollar that melts like an ice cube. And here's the kicker. Big institutions like BlackRock, Fidelity, pension funds, they are waking up and buying Bitcoin for clients. When they flood in, there is less available Bitcoin for purchase, which lowers supply and pushes demand up. Let's talk about the big picture. The Fed's balance sheet exploded from 4 trillion in 2019 to 9 trillion today. That is 5 trillion printed out of thin air. Monopoly money at this point. Every dollar printed is a tax on savers. Inflation sits stubbornly at 4 to 5% despite rate hikes. Real yields stay negative, so capital chases anything that can't be diluted, which is Bitcoin. Right now, US deficits hover around 1.5 trillion every year. The debt skyrockets, borrowing costs more, and the only escape is a non-governmental fixed supply asset. And that is Bitcoin's sweet spot, an anti-inflation fortress in a world of broken money. Now let me show you exactly how these macro factor and what the technicals say on the charts. Alright, so let's break down the daily chart and the previous patterns. First off, I want to know if Bitcoin is oversold or way overbought. I am looking at this indicator over here. Red means way oversold, green means way overbought. Next up is the MACD. It shows me the trend of the market. So if we look here, these bars show me an uptrend and a downtrend. And every time that the black line crosses over the red line, Bitcoin's price seems to follow. For example, right over here, they crossed over and Bitcoin followed. Not just that, I am looking at two very important indicators: the 20-day average, which is blue, and the 5-day average, which is the pink line right over here. So as of today, Bitcoin is way overbought. It's in the green zone. But let's see where the best point of entry would have been. Okay, so if I'm looking, over here shows way oversold. That is good to me because that means it is almost time to buy Bitcoin. Let's see what the MACD shows me. So this line crossed over, which shows a bull trend, and the bars show me that the price is about to go up. Okay, all right. Now let's look at the 5-day and the 20-day average right over here. They crossed. And every time that these two averages cross, Bitcoin either goes up or down. So over here, the pink crossed up, Bitcoin went up. In the past, when they crossed down, Bitcoin also came down right over here. So the best point of entry would have been right here when those two crossed. We see that Bitcoin is way oversold, a recovery is about to break out, and those two averages crossed. So if you wanted to trade this, you would have sold right around here, which would have given you a return of 15% if you wanted to trade it. Let's zoom out and see the bigger picture. I want to see a pattern happening. In this circle here, let's see what was going on. All right, so way oversold again, and let's see what the MACD shows me. And the MACD crossed over right over here, which shows me that a bull trend is about to break out. Now, if we look deeper and see where those two averages crossed, that would have been right around here. Let's just say if you bought down here and sold near the top, that would have given you a return of 85%, which is massive. You almost doubled your investment. Now let's look at the weekly chart for a cleaner picture. On the weekly, I look for the exact same things. So over here, it was recently way oversold. The MACD is trending up. These two lines are about to cross. Okay, so to me, this is very bullish. Now let's look at those two averages again. They are about to cross right here. So right now would be a perfect time to enter in the 95,000 range. Now let's see the weekly chart's history. So over here, the same pattern appears right around over here. So we're looking if Bitcoin is overbought or way oversold, and it seems to be way oversold in this circle right here. Let's see what the MACD shows me. Okay, so these two lines crossed here. Over here, it shows me an uptrend with these bars. Okay, now let's look at those two averages again. Right over here, those two averages crossed going up. So your best point of entry would have been right over here. So if you entered right over here, you entered in the beginning of the bull run. And if you sold near the top right over here, that would have gave you a return of 167%, which is massive. Now, I want to see if the pattern repeats itself. So if we look over here, it was oversold. The MACD is still trending down though. So I would have entered right there yet. I would have waited and waited until those two averages crossed again. So if we look here, those two averages crossed right in this circle. Let's zoom out a little bit. So if you entered here and sold near the top again, that would have gave you a return of 76%. So if you're patient and waited for those two averages to cross, you would have entered in the very beginning of the bull run every single time. Looking at the chart today, we see the exact same thing playing out. Right now is a great time to buy Bitcoin. The average return would have been roughly 100%. And this is what you should expect for this time. And with the current global situation, my price prediction is at 135,000, which is very conservative, but is still a great return on your investment. That chart tells us the story. Right now, we have BlackRock and other major institutions loading the boat on Bitcoin, which will lead to a final thrust to the 2025 peak. 130K driven by retail FOMO once the big money has shaken out the weak hands. Nothing is guaranteed, so here are my top 3 cases. Now the first one is my bull case. I give it a 70% chance. I think that we will see a peak at 120 to 135,000 and then it pulls back to the mid 90s where it consolidates. Number 2 is my bull case. I give it a 20% chance where the Fed pivots faster, ETF inflows double, interest rates get slashed to new lows. I think that we could see a spike to 160 to 180,000. Number 3 is my bear case. I give it a 10% chance, where there's a macro shock or a massive black swan event where it dips to the high 60s before recovery. A black swan event could be anything. A new COVID emerges, war happens, a nuke bomb gets dropped. There's so many different things. What this means for you, here is your action plan. Buy the dip. Place limit orders around 75,000. Don't ever try to catch a falling knife if there's a black swan event. You will get crushed in the end. Next is dollar cost average. Whether you're a pro or a newcomer, regular buys lock in and lower your average. I personally have $500 being bought every week on Thursday at noon. You don't need to copy me exactly, but have a schedule and stay consistent to it no matter what. You should also watch the Fed. As soon as rate cut talk appears, buckle up for a massive rally. Don't ever trade with emotion. You will lose every single time. You want to trade data and cold hard facts and you will win. You want to position yourself now because once the FOMO kicks in, it's already too late. Most people trade on hype, but you are smarter than that. You want to trade on facts, data, and history. And if you want more no BS breakdowns, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And make sure to drop your 2025 price predictions in the comments. I want to hear your take on this. But as always, thank you, and I'll see you guys next time.